Welcome to Magic Club. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Mr. Jordan Gold.
That's me. I'm Jordan.
Jordan. Yeah. Jordan saying hello to everybody. Jordan. So, it's a very special occasion on this episode of Magic Club. Do you know why?
Is it because we're going to expand from 2 members
to 3? We're going to have our 3rd member of Magic Club on later, Mr. Simon Coronel, who will be communicating to us from what part of the world?
Macau, which is really far away from Los Angeles.
Very far away. Very far away. He's performing at the House of Magic there, and we had to adjust our schedules because,
Yeah, Simon is, Macau, rather, is 19 hours ahead, or is 16 hours ahead, right. And the best way that I was able to figure out, because Simon and I talk a lot over the phone, but it's really hard to capture each other, is he's basically an entire day ahead and then plus 4 hours. So that's the way in my head I had to figure it out. It's like, okay, so it's noon here. That means it's midnight there and it's 4 a.m. Got it. So I think we had to do some shifting around of our schedules to capture him.
As magicians, we have weird hours to begin with, and that only exacerbates the situation.
This is true.
So before we do the show, I go through there and I look for some magic news, and I got two great items. This one, I haven't actually read the article, but the the headline had me tripped up here. And I'm like,
I'm excited because I don't know what this is, so I have no idea what you're about to say.
I understand that it's just gonna be. I think half the audience is gonna be like, well, there's no audience. It'd be like, I don't know what's so funny about that, and the other half are gonna, I think, will find it funny. I don't know. I could be wrong, and it could be straight out of the Onion. It's just the headline. You ready? This is from Magic News Channel 11. Magician teaches students about making good life choices with magic show.
Yeah, I see what you mean. There's like a deep-seated sad irony going on there.
This is Johnson City, Tennessee. I'm sure it's a great show, but I'm just like, the headline alone. Yeah, these kids are going, oh, geez, I need to study.
If anyone doesn't know why we're laughing, then just try to be a professional magician and you'll understand.
Yeah, it's about good life choices. Don't be a magician. That's the first one. So anyway, I read that. I was just like, students at Science Hill High School were treated to a magic show today, but this magic show is different than most. Stephen Bargatze with the TSSAA Student Service Right Team talks to kids about drugs and alcohol and making the right life choices, not to be a bully and to treat others with kindness and respect. I'm sure it's a great show.
Okay, well, those things make sense, but maybe good life choices outside of career choices, perhaps. Other than don't do drugs and alcohol and stay in school and don't do magic. Because magic is a severe addiction, as we all know.
And there are... you look up like the Onion, and there are like lots of like just magician is always sort of a punchline there, and rightfully so. But
I think one of my favorite Onion articles about that was it was like a magician that working at a magic shop, and it was like ever since he kissed that girl, he's never been the same. He's no longer interested in card tricks and any of that stuff.
And that's so true too. It was me at a magic shop and me discovering girls, and then I watched an old videotape of me perform. I'm like doing some really good slides and stuff. I'm like, what happened? Oh yeah, then I started dating Becky. It was like practice time done. All right.
Yeah, you got to a point where Becky didn't want to see magic tricks.
No, she did not. So apparently they said Bargatze won the World Championship of Magic in the year 2000. So
wow.
Very cool. So good on him for going out there and doing shows and doing that sort of thing. The headline, magician teaches students about making good life choices with magic show. Scared straight. So another, this is
Does he
Another.
have a like a field trip aspect to that where he takes him to the local magic club for part of
Oh
the Scared
God,
Straight?
do you want to be like that?
This
Do you
will
want
be
to be?
you in 50 years, kids.
Kids crying. I was like, no. I actually did a whole Scared Straight routine with my pencil stab. I would bring a kid up on stage, not in a kid show, but like in a grown up kind of family show, whatever. Not even family show, but I'd talk about the documentary Scared Straight and talk about how making a shiv, and I'd have a sharpened pencil and lucid envelopes and do a whole. It was a very.
It
It was
sounds
a,
pretty intense, actually.
I referenced G. Gordon Liddy in his book Will, and it was a very out there kind of thing about self determination. It was just the game of it was just that like I'm having this like really intense conversation with the kid about surviving in prison and stuff, and I'm telling this to a 10-year-old kid, and like I have any experience in that at all.
Yeah.
So we just recorded an episode with Blake Voigt, which is fantastic, super, super excited. The secret session on there is great. The secret session we did with Simon, by the way, which we recorded beforehand, great, great, great stuff. But one of the things we talked about in the Blake episode is his experience with America's Got Talent. And Blake had a very positive experiences, nice things to say about that. And there's been a lot of different stories about going on there. And one of the things that the point that was iterated is how much you want to rehearse and get this stuff down, but the producers want you something bigger and better and more amazing. Apparently, for Britain's Got Talent, they had a magician by the name of Matt Johnson was performing an effect which was going to be an escape. He's going to be lowered into a tub of water and try to get free. Right?
Uh-oh. I don't know if I like where this is going.
Well, headline. Let me see if I can. I'm going to try an experiment here, sharing the screen, and see if this ruins anything.
All right. I'm always down for experiments that might ruin everything.
I'm not even going to try doing that because I'm afraid it'll break everything. Matt Johnson, Matt the Illusionist. Apparently, he was put into the tub, and the tank of water broke, spilling water everywhere.
Wow. Okay. So had he never tried this before in the tub of water, or?
I don't know. Listen, maybe he tried the escape, but that could have been the first time. Maybe it wasn't his own. Maybe it was something Britain's Got Talent prepared. The weight of the water cracked the tank and sent thousands of liters of water flooding all over the stage. Panic-stricken TV chiefs evacuated the venue, fearing the water would come in contact with the electrical equipment surrounding the stage and start a blaze. So, yeah, Matt.
Wow.
I hope he was able to get through and eventually do that again, because that's kind of a little frustrating.
Like a publicity stunt. Less than a magician's. If you want some publicity, just go break a water tank, and then you'll be in the news.
Apparently, it was during an onstage rehearsal, so none of the judges were there.
Oh, wow.
And thankfully the judges weren't harmed. But yeah, but there's crew. There's people who have to deal with this.
Probably a lot of damage too. It was. I was telling Blake a story about when I used to do magic at a bar, and David Blaine walked in super late one night, just sort of random, not quite randomly, but he ended up in the bar, and there was a water tank in the bar because it was part of a nightclub, and it was just. They had a girl dancing around the water tank, and he knocked on the water tank and looked at it, and he's like, I don't feel so good about this thing. Like, he knew that though this water tank was, he's very aware that that's a possibility with this stuff, because you don't realize, you look at a tank, you say, okay, I've seen a pool, you can fill it up with water. It makes sense in your mind, but you don't really realize how much pressure and weight that water is going to have, especially on a windowed box. So you got to do the engineering on that.
I was in Shanghai, and there's this really amazing street that's just filled with shopping on either sides. And one of the things they had was an attraction, which looked like probably a 20 or 30 foot glass window. There's fish behind there, and there are like scuba divers in there. It was a really kind of very, very cool thing. And I remember looking at that, going, "Wow, this is amazing!" Because I love aquariums and stuff. And I was thinking about the fact, I've never seen one of these outdoors, because usually you see these sort of tanks indoors in sort of climate-controlled environments. And I was really impressed by the fact that they had this outdoor tank that could handle these temperature extremes. It could not handle the temperature extremes. I think while I was there, a few days later, it got very, very cold, and the tank glass shattered. And there's a surveillance footage you can see of all these fish and stuff just.
Oh my God. Well, and also the glass shards are now being ejected out at extremely high velocities too. So if you're anything near, if you're near that at all, it's not just the water, but you've got the glass flying at you, and then I guess sharks if it's a tank, and you have dangerous fish that are coming at you, piranhas or something like that.
Yeah, well, at least
So
like yeah, there's video of this, which is kind of like a little bit. You just watch this thing just explode. But if you look up Shanghai fish tank explodes, it's one of the things you have to keep in mind if you do big illusions or escapes is that you're dealing with large props. You're doing very, very big things. There have been a couple instances where magicians have lost their lives. There was I think Amazing Joe was a magician who was going to perform this escape from a plexiglass coffin underneath cement. And the problem was is that plexiglass was not going to be, I don't know plexiglass, but some sort of acrylic or some sort of clear plasticine material was nowhere strong enough to support the weight of that. If you try to put this thing on the bottom of a pool, it would implode, and that's what happens. They're pouring the concrete on top of them, and the thing just implodes inwards. And it's frightening is that, sometimes people don't think through these things. There have been magicians who've done, let's say, the upside-down straitjacket escape from a burning rope, and probably the best way to do it is put a cable on the rope. And people have like, nah, I'll just do it with a real rope that's burning. Well, if you've got a 20-mile-an-hour wind and you've been doing it indoors, that rope is going to burn faster. It's going to, it's chemistry, it's physics. And these things need to be taken account for. Which, they have small
I think
scale
also,
stuff too.
Even Mythbusters on their show were doing, they weren't doing a magic trick, but it was, they were testing some myth about being buried alive or something like that. And they put the coffin in there, and they're in the thing, and they start loading dirt up, and the coffin just starts collapsing around them. Like they didn't even think about the fact that, all this dirt is going to be put on top of it, and this thing is just going to fall apart, So it's after, hindsight's 2020, right? All this stuff, but it's got to think about what you're going to do. And it's just another reason to always rehearse what you're doing before you have this great idea and decide you're going to get it live in front of a bunch of people and have this whole publicity stunt. Figure out a way to recreate all the conditions that are going to happen, because as we all know, even with stuff that we've rehearsed, everything that can go wrong will go wrong. And that's especially true if it's the first time you're ever putting this thing together.
It is, and it works at sort of all scales. I know when I've worked with illusions, large scale stuff, both you have to think of the size considerations and designing stuff that works with water tanks. Everything leaks. When you see, I've worked with magicians who've used large water tanks, and they're just if it's gonna move around or whatever, you have to expect that, and that's sort of the thing you have to sort of assume. But you don't think about those things, and well, if it leaks, it means it's going to be running out of water, and if you fill this thing before the show, that means if it takes 2 hours to get into that part of the show, you're going to be losing X amount. A lot of those considerations. But also on another level, too, is different environments for smaller things. I grew up in South Florida, and, things that you take for granted in L.A., like going outside and opening up a deck of cards, in South Florida, you go outside and you get booked in a show, and it's because it's so humid there, that deck is ruined. That deck's not necessarily ruined, but that deck, after you start doing it for, an hour of walk-around magic with a regular deck of cards in a humid environment like Florida, it's very different. And if you're not thinking about that you need to have decks and decks and decks, it's a very different experience.
Well, even certain decks just get printed goofy. You get misprints and these type of things. And not only myself, I know a bunch of guys who have got to their gig and, maybe they only brought a deck of cards with them because it's a short gig or something. They open up the box and the cards are like totally misprinted, not like slightly off borders, but the thing's just unusable, like totally goofy decks. And that, ever since then, open up your decks before you leave the house and just check the box, make sure that those things are good. Because even small details, like you can get somewhere and things won't work.
So let me ask you a question. If there was a knock at the door right now, some guys in hoods were there. They grabbed you, threw you into a van, drove you to a house in Beverly Hills. Like, listen, this is the way we hire everybody. It's a $10,000 gig. And they frisked you on the way. So I don't know what magic you already have on you. They took out your deck of cards, your rubber bands, everything, and threw you into an average kind of house. How much material could you come up with in 20 minutes?
I could, for a walk-around show? Or
Living
for
room.
a show?
In a living room kind of show.
In an actual, like, I'm going to put a show together, not do walk-around close up magic.
Yeah, right. They're going to be sitting in the living room. They're going to be watching, like, Jordan, come do a show.
I could probably scrape together a 20-minute show pretty easily, especially if it's a Beverly Hills house. And, let's say they've got some coins, some money laying around. You could probably you could even fashion a thumb tip out of let's say the foil off of a wine bottle, take the top off that. You have a container, you can do the bill switch with it. It's not going to be as clean as being able to show, but you can hide, you can switch the bill and you can be able to do stuff like that. You could do a bottle production. Michael Mode has the bowling pin production from your jacket, and it has a gimmick that helps, but you don't really need the gimmick. You can kind of just put the thing where it's supposed to go, and you can do that with a wine bottle. I've done that on occasion, and there are ways you can sort of make a small trick a bigger trick, which may not be the most ideal situation for your ideal show, but for a off the cuff show, I've seen magicians do like the sort of pickpocket gambling routines with a couple coins, like a Scotch and soda type effect with sleight of hand. You can turn into this whole Vegas-y con man style thing and really get back and forth going. And it's doable. I think the bigger piece with that is that the best tool you have as a magician is your brain. It's your experience. And you can learn 8 tricks and just do those 8 tricks and make a full living off of just those 8 tricks. But it's better to have 8 tricks that are your professional repertoire and then have, a couple hundred tricks that you've read about and you've gone through and you've played with. And, maybe you don't do paper balls over the head. Maybe that's not your style, but why not have that, deep down in your repertoire?
And that's the thing I think about. Like, I was at a party a week ago, and, I got asked spontaneously to do something. I had a deck of cards on me. I was like, oh, they might ask me. But I wasn't really in the mode kind of thing. But I did, I did like 10 or 15 minutes of stuff or whatever. And then it was after the fact, I'm like, I know so much more impromptu stuff than I even think about it. Book tests, all this sort of stuff, all these things. And it was just that. And I keep meaning to, like, I think I've made lists before of, like, all that stuff, but I kind of think I just need to put, like, on an index card or something in my wallet, like, hey, dummy, this is great, this is great, this is great, this is great, you can do this in your sleep. But in the moment, they're like, oh, do you want to go on next? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then after I finish, like, there's a bookcase right there. Like, I've got, killer impromptu, book tests and stuff. And so it's just not going out there and doing that enough. I think it's been forever since I just did a bunch of things. I've just been locked away kind of in hermit introvert writer mode. But
you know what that sounds like a great thing for is maybe a segment in perhaps secret sessions where every session we could do a this is something that you can do off the cuff. Totally. Let's say we dropped you off in a house in Beverly Hills. What are you going to do? Here's what we would recommend, and we'll see about that for future episodes, perhaps.
That's a great idea. It's a great idea. Well, sir, are you ready? Is it time to bring out the third member of Magic Club?
We're about to almost double in size. I can't believe it.
Incredible. It's incredible. And we've already taped a segment with Blake Voigt, so... taped, he says, recorded a segment with Blake. So, like, in our heads, we have doubled. But now you're going to see our first segment with Mr. Simon Coronel. So let's go to that right now. We're here now with Mr. Simon Coronel, live from Macau, which last I checked is somewhere in Asia.
You are 100% correct. It is totally in Asia.
So
right in the middle of it. And I'm there.
You're performing at the House of Magic, which tell us first, what kind of magic do you do?
Okay, I do basically, my line is always, I do magic that celebrates rather than dismisses the audience's intelligence.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah, I know. In a more practical term, everything except big box illusions, animals, and kids shows, and table hopping. I'll do walk around, but not table hopping. Table hopping's the worst. Never do table hopping.
Are you talking in this show?
I am talking now entirely in Mandarin Chinese, which I didn't expect when I
Was
first
that
got
a
the gig.
prerequisite? How many? So
No.
you have to be a magician that talks in Chinese to get hired over there?
No, the weird. So I'll explain the gig. So the House of Magic, Franz Harary's new. It's been around for a year and a half now. Venue in Macau. The way the whole thing works, it's not just like a show. You buy a ticket, you turn up. It's almost like a mini theme park. Like the whole thing is themed. It's all very steampunk. You walk in through this hovering capsule that goes nowhere. It's like a very clever, magic-based illusion. So it looks like it goes nowhere, but you actually walk into the venue. You walk through a really cool mirror maze that's actually really impressive. So it's very disorienting and illusiony. You walk into the lab, the laboratory, which is this kind of really like magic, like if Sherlock Holmes was a magician in the recent movies, steampunky magic lab type places full of magical artifacts and weird illusions on the walls, where a guy, me, the illusioneer, so I'm like kind of half playing a character, but like as myself, greets you and does magic for you. So it's basically a half hour of kind of crowd welcome, walk around. Rather than walk around, I basically treat it like an indoor street show. So I basically do like a 15-minute set for everybody in the room, and then take photos and chat and do other little tricks if they're into it.
Simon, how similar is this? So this is a job that you're sort of filling in, and someone is going to come replace you, and you've replaced somebody else. Is that right?
Yeah. So they hire people normally on like a 3 to 6 month contract for this, because the idea is they want to be able to have recycling acts so that locals can come back, encourage repeat audiences, every now and then.
And so how much of it is decided, like scripted ahead of time? How much were you told this is the role, and how much of it have you personally brought?
Well, we'll get to that. So okay. the walk aroundy half hour is kind of whatever I want to do. Just do some stuff, make the audience happy, make them feel engaged and connected to the magic.
When you say walk around, is it the same audience, or how is this? Give me an idea of what the environment is.
So it's always the same room, and we do 3 what are called show cycles a day, because what I'm doing is just the first part of like a 4-segment experience.
Are people seated? Or
No, they're milling around in this room,
exploring
it's like it's a single space. It's not like there's different sections, but it's this big, maybe like 200 square foot room. It's like small but not tiny. 300 foot. Fuck, I actually don't even know what
200 square foot's like 10 by 20.
10 by 20. Wait, okay, no, like 500 square foot. It's like the size of a studio apartment.
Okay,
like
gotcha.
A big studio apartment.
Okay, gotcha.
Actually, a big studio apartment full of weird magic stuff.
Okay.
And they walk around. It's a really cool room. It's amazing. Got all kinds of stuff. And I'm there as well, greeting them and mingling with them. And they've got ushers that are also ushering people in from the mirror maze that they enter through. So people are already disoriented and excited. And so I just greet them and do stuff. And I sort of spend the first 15 minutes just hanging, wait till there's a crowd, then do a big 15-minute, parlor/indoor street type show as people stand and go, "Ooh, guys doing magic. Look, let's watch this." And then at the end of that, there's a music cue change. The background music changes. And then I climb up on this really high platform. It's like 10 feet off the ground. That I know it's definitely 10 feet.
Super high.
Then, super high. It's also worth mentioning, and there will be no photos of this on social media, but I'm doing this in a steampunk outfit, right? I'm fully themed. Yeah. Like let that sink in. This is the glory.
Which for anyone that doesn't know Simon, that's pretty much the exact opposite of Simon's normal performance.
Your blimp driver goggles on? Are you wearing those?
The blimp driver goggles are permanently attached to the top hat.
Oh, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
But the goggles are there. Yeah, completely.
Lots of gears somewhere, just cranking around, doing pretty much nothing.
Yeah. Again, attached to the hat and on the costume a little bit. So I'm in steampunk, which is quite the experience for me. And then I climb up on that giant platform, greet everybody again. Hi, welcome to the House of Magic. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to see a lot of shows today. But first, check out this gigantic teleportation device.
Of course.
And this thing has been sitting in the corner of the room the whole time. It's bigger than you'd expect from the description I can give it. Like,
my teleportation devices tend to be pretty small, more tabletop sized.
Yeah, almost like a handheld ray device.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Yeah. Well, you're a compact guy, Andrew. You like things that pack down. That makes sense.
I don't need to show off a big teleportation device like you do.
Yeah. Well, when it's a permanent, $40 million installation venue in Macau. Yeah, I know. They spent 40 mil on this place.
Franz Harary doesn't do anything small. Nothing small.
He really isn't.
So when you say they, this is Franz Harary spent 40 million, or
I actually don't know the exact investment structure. Basically, Franz Harary pitched the idea to the Studio City Hotel and Casino, which is one of these mega casinos in Macau. And 40 million was spent, I think. Right. Sorry, burping there. By the casino and their investors, and who knows what the exact investment structure is. It may or may not be public knowledge.
Now, was this a public offering of bonds or was it a privately held placement?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I do not know,
but I
past
the finance.
I plan to find out.
Yeah.
So I introduced this.
I think it was like Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
They just crowdfunded the whole thing.
Yeah, coming soon, the House of Magic deck of cards.
Yeah. Everyone in China just gave $1, and it was funded.
Everyone in China would give about 6 cents, and it would be funded.
So you got your teleportation device.
So the teleportation device, pick a person out of the crowd who's going to fit well in the machine, bring them up onto the platform, put them in the teleportation device, and vanish them. And it's a really cool vanish. The teleportation device is actually like one of those gyroscope 2-axis spinning things.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with the model.
Seats. Yeah, and then they spin around crazily and then vanish.
Oh, wow.
It's pretty cool. It's cool. It's a very cool illusion. And now it's like, well, so this part of the up on the platform with the teleporter is much more scripted, because that's me. They've worked out this sequence. They're going to borrow a person, bring them up, put them in here, spin it, put the shutters down, spin it again. They vanish. Where's he gone? Oh, I don't know. We might see him later. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Keep an eye out for that guy. And so then everybody files through so its capacity is 300 people can come and see this thing. They will split into groups of, up to 150. They each then go into a different, smaller 150-seat theater, and each group sees a 15-minute, smaller stage show. Mm-hmm. The groups then swap, and each one sees the other 15-minute show. And the two theaters are different. Like, they're differently themed and differently styled. One is sort of like being outside a castle at night, and the show is happening in this aperture in the castle. And the other one's just a really nice theater.
And how long did you say those shows were?
15 minutes
15
each.
minutes?
So they've seen me for up to half an hour when they arrive. They then see these two 15-minute shows. They swap and see the other one. And then all 300 file into the final Mega Magic Theater, the Franz Harary Mega Magic Show. And they watch the Franz Harary Mega Magic Show performed sometimes by Franz Harary or whoever else is filling in for that role at the time.
Oh, wow.
And that runs for about half an hour. So by the end of it, they've seen it's been a 90-minute experience split across 4 different kind of rooms, theaters in the whole Mega Magic venue.
That's pretty cool.
It is cool. It's an experience.
Yeah.
Everyone leaves going, wow, we got our money's worth. We saw a lot of stuff.
The Mega Magic show, that doesn't change, is that right? That's always the same, except sometimes it's Franz, sometimes it's like Franz lookalikes, maybe.
It's Mega Magic, Jordan. You just don't find Mega Magic everywhere.
Oh, I just know. Maybe there's a lot of Mega Magic Chinese-speaking magicians out there.
There's one Franz Harary, sir. There's only one Franz Harary.
However, Franz Harary boasts actively on record that he can teach anyone to do his show in a day. He boasts that. That is a point of pride. He's built this show, this gigantic extravaganzical Mega Magic show that he can teach someone else to do in a day, and then they can do it.
It's called Look and Point.
Yep, exactly. Yep, that is how Franz fully, that is, what he does. That's what he likes doing.
How would you compare that to, do you remember Caesar's Magical Empire?
I know it was before my time. I never saw it, but I know of it. From what I've heard about Caesar, it sounds like a similar model.
Yeah, this sounds like it may have figured out how to make it work right.
Yeah.
So, what kind of stuff are you doing in your magic show there?
I'm doing stuff that plays from the pockets because I'm walking around. Although I have realized that, and I plan to play with this, I can bring big props out. Like I have a dressing room that's directly attached to the lab room.
Ooh, I have a dressing room. Sorry.
Yeah,
so fancy.
It's small, but it's mine. Mm-hmm. / whoever's covering for me on the day off. And I'm basically doing effects that play very. So this is the other thing about the Mandarin. So the person who does Mega Magic is a very simple, very visual show, right? It just, just vomits impressively things into your visual field until you just go, whoa! You're just stunned by all the lights and sounds.
Vomit stuff into your visual field. Is that from the actual description?
I think that's actually in Tarbell Volume 1. I think it opens with that.
Watching Mega Magic for the first time reminded me of a Penny Arcade comic where one of the characters gets like way pre-Oculus. It wasn't like not a VR headset, but a headset that simulates a 200-foot screen in your visual field. So the idea is you put this headset that's like watching a gigantic cinema screen, and the guy's watching it, and Gabe from Penny Arcade is using it, going, "Whoa! It's like a 200-foot screen where my brain should be." And that is what watching Mega Magic feels like. It's just what is happening in my visual field. There is so much going on. It's insane. Like just the visual stimulus overload of it.
Can you give us like a small excerpt from the show?
Oh man.
Or is that going to spoil the show? Should everyone just go to Macau, go see the show?
Yeah, it is. It's so worth seeing. Because it's just I've never seen. It's not like there's nothing like it out there, but I had personally never seen something with this level of like not just magic but AV technology. The use of AV is just visually very powerful. I don't necessarily agree with all of it creatively or artistically, but that says nothing of it's just like whoa factor.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to put some photos of this up here because I'm at the website right now for and it's a huge, big, amazing spectacle. It's incredible the size.
Yeah.
So Simon, this is it's a Mega Magic show in China, but it's different than a lot of the other places that you would have performed outside of the Mega Magic obviousness of it. You're doing a lot more shows per day. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I am doing now 6 or 8 shows per day.
Oh wow!
6 on the weekdays, 8 on the weekends, and a show is basically sort of like 15 to 20 minutes of a indoor parlor show, and then 3 or 4 of those 6 or 8, so half the time I run that whole teleporter sequence.
And how does that compare to doing like a cruise ship? Or
on
something else?
On a cruise ship, you do 2 45-minute stage shows in a week. So 2 shows a week versus 6 times 4 plus 2 times 8. I haven't even done the math on it. So 24, 18, 16, 30 shows a week versus 2 shows a week.
And you're doing these shows in Mandarin the entire time?
So here's one of the many interesting challenges about this gig is
it only took you a day to learn it, right? Because Franz taught you that, right?
Yeah, exactly. The Mandarin and Mega Magic, the 2 M's, the pillars of the House of Magic.
Macau.
It's 3 M's, I think, actually. M's. Mega Magic.
Macau, Mega Magic, and Mandarin. And so when they're booking, so anyone can do Mega Magic. Direct quote from Franz Harary. You need the right personality and everything. But when they book the smaller theaters, the 2 15-minute shows, they're very much explicit. And this is Bruce Gold, who we all know, great magician, another LA castle guy, really cool guy. He's the one booking the acts.
For those of you who don't know, Bruce Gold was the magician in the very famous Got Milk commercial featuring the magician, which was very exciting for me to discover, and we talked about that. But anyways,
many years ago. So they're very much booking silent acts, very explicitly. They're booking silent acts that can do their entire act to music, with maybe like 10 words of dialogue. Like, how is that, like very simple dialogue, if any. They really want silent stuff because of the language barrier. And here's the challenge is that in an average audience, say it's a mix of English, Mandarin, and Cantonese, and then like Spanish, Italian, whoever else turns up, because Macau is very much a tourist destination. And so I was lucky enough. I learned Mandarin at high school and university back in Australia, just because my high school, we had to learn 2 foreign languages, and the choices were Mandarin, French, and Latin. Like, those are the 3, pick 2. And my thinking basically went, why the hell would I learn Latin? Sure, it's historically and academically very interesting, but that's not what I want from life. I want to communicate.
They hardly book anything anymore in ancient Rome.
Yeah, it's a tough
gig. The Colosseum still needs renovations before that comes back online. So I learned Mandarin and French, hated French, quite like Mandarin, kept doing it for like 10 years up until university. And so suddenly, and so if I speak Mandarin to the crowd, the English speakers and the Cantonese only speakers don't understand it. But if I speak English, the Mandarin or Cantonese only speakers don't understand it. There's no language you can speak in this venue where the whole crowd will understand you. Or even
How about Latin? Have you tried that?
Point. We've had a couple of Italians in, so there's a chance.
Could be.
When I performed in Japan, I would do a 45-minute stage show, no talking, and then like a 15-minute nightclub show. And that's standard, like for magicians who want to go work overseas, is that work on the silent bits, because you will find that, and not just there, but here also, like here too, like in America, a lot of casinos, and there are other places where you're not going to have control over amplified sound. It's not just a matter of, let's say, what languages people speak, but it's also sometimes there's not enough amplification for doing this, whatever. Work on the silent stuff. Work on the silent stuff, because you can get booked in a lot of places. And so what's the length of the shows the people are, like a 15-minute show, is that one person doing the spot, or is it a couple people doing spots?
So there's the two different 15-minute theaters, and each theater is one person doing the spot. So they're doing the 3 to 6 or 4 to 8 shows a day in that room.
So
and the other thing that's really interesting about this venue that I've never seen before is they have what's called the swing act, which to me sounded pretty kinky at first. But then it's a guy currently, Arcadio is his name, Spanish magician, really cool guy, who the venue is open 7 days a week, but people need days off. And the swing act covers for whichever person has their day off. So on Saturday and Sunday, he's doing my job. On Monday and Tuesday, he's doing one of the theaters. Wednesday, Thursday, does the other theater. And then on like the other day, he does Mega Magic.
I wish.
So he's working hard.
The day off thing, when I did Japan, it was 7 days a week.
Oh,
6 months straight, 7 days a week. And
what?
There is something to it, though. Like, man, like without a single break, day off, like you get into a weird routine, and you look at, like, you don't. It's not like, oh, well, I'll have Sunday or this, whatever. You just sort of, you do it. And like when you have to get up on stage every single day for half of a year, you get really smooth at the end of it, that's for sure. But also you just learn how to troop through anything. You learn how, even if you're sick or whatever, how to pace yourself, how to handle that. And so it was a great experience.
Yeah, and I'm finding the same thing, even with my 1 or 2 days off a week alternating. This is by far more shows and performing per time unit than I've ever done in my life. Before this, like a week at the castle, right? That's, up to 4 sets a night for a week. That's a lot of shows. It's a very, that's extreme. But man, this is something else. Even in 1 week, I'm doing more shows in the castle, and I'm doing this for 3 months straight. And yeah, already I can feel it, that smoothness of like, yep, we got this. It's fine. Just doing so many shows. When you're doing so many, you stop fearing mistakes, not anything else. You're more open to trying new things out. You really become invested in each audience because the shows are so repetitive, and not in a bad way. It's just the nature of it. You start to look at the interactions as the interesting things, and that's, for me, represents an evolution to a much, more interesting level of performance that I really care about.
I noticed that time functioned differently. I noticed that a trick that was maybe 90 seconds, and I used to be like, okay, I got to worry about this prop or this prop and this thing. Once that was second nature, it just seems like everything expanded. So things would go fast, but you would be like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, I can look here, I can go do that.
Yeah, it's like bullet time. It's like being in the Matrix at high speed. Because it so well, you can zoom in. You're right, more granularly into the time frame, and you have more time to think, on your feet and in the moment.
That's
why be aware of what's going on around you.
In America, theme park shows are kind of, you do these 20-minute shows, and you do a lot of them, and it's hard work, and very different from cruise ship shows, but it's a great way to get good and do practice and kind of pay your dues.
So that's one of the things that. Sorry, you go.
Oh, I have a question, and I asked this question to Leonard Green as well a while ago about cultural differences performing around. His answer: when he blindfolds himself and then picks a piece of dust off of his close-up mat, most audiences laugh, but Japanese audiences don't laugh because they think that he made a mistake, and they don't want to laugh at him being embarrassed. Are you finding cultural differences with the types of magic you're performing or your presentations and having to change because of that?
So much. So much. It's fascinating, the differences. And the one of the most challenging things about this is not just the complex mix of languages in the room, but the cultures. So you have, even amongst, quote unquote Chinese audiences, you have this huge difference between big city mainland China versus small city slash rural mainland China, and then Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan are all parts of, what you would call Greater China. And they're very different. Like Hong Kong is very much like a first world happening city. It's like New York or LA or Melbourne, or, a city that has its stuff together. Whereas mainland China is, you could sort of describe it as second world. It's not third world, but like some places are pretty third worldy. It's sort of still kind of transitioning. And the culture is really different. Like there's this whole thing about people from Hong Kong, like as a stereotype, just hate mainlanders because they see them as really like uncouth and unsophisticated and rude and spit everywhere and smoke all the time. And, so in Hong Kong, part of China, they're going, ugh, mainlanders, it's the worst. So there's already this huge divide culturally between the two groups. And like I much prefer, just because it's a more familiar culture, like Hong Kong audiences are fine, but they tend to be, Chinese audiences generally want to bust your chops way more statistically. Every individual is completely different, but there's this trend towards performing and just watching people openly having conversations during the show with each other about how they think your tricks are done. Like clearly pointing out, oh yeah, I can hear, my Mandarin, like I can speak it well enough to do a show in it, but I don't speak it well enough to understand everything everyone's saying all the time. So often I'm picking up snatches of, and their body language also makes it clearer. Like, oh yeah, he's got an extra one in his right hand right now, I'm pretty sure. And then he like openly just having a conversation about this with no concept that might be rude or not okay or inconsiderate or anything.
Like, hey, I'm right here, hey, guys.
Yeah, right here, guys. And like people just checking their cell phones, like, and openly just like having conversations in the middle of the show. It's just this.
Wait,
it's
that's
sort of
wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry. I was.
And the other interesting thing is and this isn't a value judgment, but just sort of the comedy in China is generally less subtle than in the West. And it makes sense, right? Rewind a couple of hundred years in America or Europe, and the comedy was less subtle there as well, right? They've just had less time with this open communications and art. So, for example, I like to open my shows with the old removable thumb gag, right? It's a thing I do a lot, and I have this follow-up routine. And when I do that in the US or Australia or New Zealand or Canada or the UK or Europe, here we go, big build-up, removable thumb. And it instantly gets a laugh because the audience knows that I know that they know how it's done, right? They know that I know that that's a stupid gag and they're not going to be amazed by it, so they laugh. It's this, there's this multi-layered
Jordan, we weren't supposed to be amazed?
I have no idea. Simon, will you go over that in our secret sessions later, too? Because I'm blown away.
Animatronic. Done.
Wow, that's a camera trick.
Prostheses. And you do that, and it gets, that's funny. And except in the West, every now and then you'll get maybe 1 in 200 people have never seen it before and freak out, right? You get that. But if you've never seen that before, that is a brilliant illusion. That's a really startling visual thing. And we forget that because we've all seen that in elementary school. We all know that. But every now and then someone doesn't because they were homeschooled, they grew up somewhere else, or they just never happened to see it by free coincidence.
Homeschool or magician.
And they freak out. They go, whoa, And so you do that in the House of Magic for the, like mixed Chinese, half Macau, slightly Portuguese, everything audience. And they, particularly the mainlanders, like to them, they've seen it before, but they think you're trying to fool them and failing, and you're dumb and you suck. They're like, what is this guy? Why is this guy trying to impress us with that? They don't realize that second layer of the ironic performance, which just makes sense, culturally.
I had that happen once where I do the bit where I'd have like my sleeve filled with coins. And I go like, yes, I've been practicing sleight of hand for years. I'm going to present for you this extreme, complicated thing, and I'd lower my hand, and the coins would just spill out. Like, I'd do it at college shows, uproarious laughter. Do it any place. The only place I found I couldn't do it, like if you couldn't see, my heart. If I was like on a flat stage, or whatever, I go do this. I get hired to do like some. Like I'm like a teenager to get hired to do this like a company picnic, and I'm in this plaza or in this shelter, and I go like, yeah, I been practicing all this. I do it. The coins spill out. Nothing. I'm like, okay. Afterwards, a person hired me and said, yeah, well, they had a problem. They said your tricks didn't work. I go, what do you mean? They said, oh, your coins spilled out of your sleeve. That's the bit. That was the bit. But I'll say it was a company picking English was a second language. And so it was like they didn't get, and I didn't know. I'm thinking, everybody will think this is funny.
Yeah.
No.
Again, what's funny because if you think about it, irony, right? Ironic comedy is something that you don't have a lot of time for when you're still like struggling to feed your family in a second world country. You know what I mean? Like this is very much a first world privilege, this idea of ironic comedy, that we've spent enough time. There was this thing that in fact, my favorite book ever is Cryptonomicon by Neil Stephenson. I love that book. And there's a bit in it where this guy is studying cryptography, like, encrypting and decrypting messages. And one of the test sentences he has to encrypt and decrypt is something like, 2 boats lost at sea, like something send extra supplies. And he sort of thinks this is like a kind of endearingly hokey little message, like, 2 boats lost at sea. And then he stops and has this realization moment where he's like, you know what? Like back when this stuff was invented, like 2 boats lost at sea was a huge, really important deal. Like we just now think that's hokey because we've never had to face that kind of reality in our day-to-day lives. Whereas when that's just reality for people, the merchant is hoping their goods get through, and that was not guaranteed back then. You haven't got a lot of room for irony about your comedy.
It's you
where a lot of people in China are.
You kind of got to look at things from very far away and see how they'll play. You've got to sort of look and understand that you don't always have the benefit of somebody explaining things to them. That was a big lesson for me in learning how to play broadly. And, a performer who I watched when I was in Shanghai just absolutely kill was Ed Alonzo. And because his stuff is so visual, so powerful, watching an auditorium filled with Chinese people, and they're crying from laughter because it was just so visual and so powerful. And that's why a guy like him works overseas so much.
Yeah.
In here.
Yeah.
Simon, what are maybe one effect that plays really well over here that doesn't over there as much? And then do you have any that you've been trying out that sort of surprise work really well that you weren't expecting them to?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, one of the things is, again, that finger opening, so to speak. I worked out how to make it play just by changing some of the beats because, in the West, I just do it and act like it's a big deal and people get that I'm being ironic and it's really funny. So here what I do instead is sort of start to do it, go, oh my God, my finger's coming off, and then I immediately reveal it. So I'm making it clear that I know that they know how it's done. And they go, oh, he's sure. Okay. And then that sells it. But the other thing is here, in the West, you get, 0.5% of people on average have never seen it and freak out. Here, it's more like 3 to 4%, right? So in every crowd, there's at least a few people who freak out. So it's this weird thing of like Teller's line about his red ball, his floating ball illusion. He mentions that it's done with a piece of thread to get the whole audience on the same page as the magicians who can appreciate it. It's that same thing by sort of revealing the thumb gag. Now everyone's on the same page. Now we all know how it's done. And then there are extra gags about it, and I then teach them to do it and go from there. So like just finding a different way to make the same bit play with a different presentation. Different things, what's worked, what hasn't. The poker chip 3-fly that I do, I've got, 1,000 versions of that, but I do the simpler version now. The open misdirection one, it's too hard to explain the idea behind it. Like unless you explain this concept, I'm going to do a thing without you noticing. And then you'll realize that's like, I haven't yet worked out how to explain that in Mandarin, and it might be too subtle anyway. So I just now do it as just a hyper-visual 3-fly. Like I've got 3 things. They're going to appear here. Bam, bam, bam. And so that plays much better in that format that I've noticed. Again, simple, visual, clear, amazing.
And again, for anyone unfamiliar with Simon, you did this on Penn and Teller Fool Us last season. I
did.
Yeah, so you can find that online. It's very good.
And speaking of simple and visual, Simon, we're going to have you tell us some more Macau stories on another episode, but we're going to have you on our secret session, right? And you're going to show what are you going to go work on with us?
We're going to talk about some color changes, playing card transformations, three very popular common color changes that I have work on.
Awesome.
The people that I do better than people. I'm going to show you how.
And he does. We've seen it. I believe it. Simon, thank you very much for being on Magic Club. And you know what this means? You're the third member.
Nice.
That's right.
I'm in Magic Club.
It's 3 people. We got 3 members.
1, 2, 3.
We're
expanding.
That reminds me of another great Macau story for another time.
Sweet. Cool.
My favorite
doubled
thing that's happened here so far involves the number 3.
All right.
Don't take that the wrong way. Actually, I just realized how that sounded.
It's okay. It's all good. All right, sir. Thank you very much. Hey, thanks for watching Magic Club. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to email us, hit us up at magicclub@itrix.com. And if you want to stick around and watch our secret session with Mr. Simon Coronel and learn some great stuff, what did he show us during that part?
We went over some color changes. We did his really brilliant handling of the Erdnase change. He's got some great tips on that. He did his version of the twirl change, and he's got some really fantastic ways to sort of rethink just the entire framing of that color change to really make it look beautiful. The twirl change is one that I've seen almost every single magician use, and Simon has so much work on it. It's insane. So even if you use this stuff, you're going to learn something new. And then we went pretty in depth on the snap change as well, and came up with some new uses for it, new ways to sort of think about it. I actually changed my technique a little bit with the way that I was holding it, and it made a big difference. So we're doing those 3 changes, and I think that's it. It's going to be really awesome. You're going to learn a lot, and I think we might have another secret thing in there as well. So check it out.
Fun times. Now, if you want to be part of that fun, just sign up over at patreon.com/Magic Club. And all of our Magic Club supporters over there get access to the secret sessions, both that one and all the previous ones we've done. So it's pretty awesome, I think. I've been learning stuff every single session we've done, which, other than ones with you and me, that's only 2, but that's 4 sessions total so far, and it's been worth it.
And, Simon went into depth that I haven't seen any other magician before. He's literally writing things in places that you wouldn't expect. So check it out. It's actually pretty great.
Cool. See you guys next time on Magic Club.